Here are your headlines for the day. The Pentagon has just made the results of a 4-year-old Defense Department survey public. The survey found widespread racial discrimination and harassment in the United States military. The Pentagon made these results public after a Reuters investigation revealed the Trump administration had been sitting on the data. Nearly a third of Black U.S. military service members reported experiencing racial discrimination, harassment, or both during the 12-month period tracked in the survey. But many did not report it due to what's being quoted as high levels of dissatisfaction with the complaint process. Reuters released its investigation on January 14th, and the numbers back up a special report by Reuters last September that chronicled military service members' experiences and fear of retaliation for reporting discrimination. The survey is conducted every 4 years, so even as the public learns of the results for the first time, the Pentagon is required to carry out a new survey for the 2021 fiscal year. The Trump administration denied a Reuters Freedom of Information Act request just last month at the same time that Senator Kirsten Gillibrand's office was also seeking the data. Here's what the senator told Reuters. This just released 2017 report shows President Trump's Department of Defense has deliberately concealed the statistics exposing a racial justice crisis in the military. While defense leadership paid lip service to equality, they withheld a report revealing that minority service members face rampant discrimination and harassment, and those that report it are nearly as likely to face punishment as the perpetrators. More than 40% of active duty forces are people of color, but leadership remains largely white and male. President Biden's appointment of Lloyd Austin made him the first Black defense secretary in United States history, so experts say that signals the possibility of change. You know, this is interesting to me. The Trump administration, held this. They set on this information, something that the public definitely 100% deserve to know. And 4 years ago, right, they've had this. They got this info that showed widespread racism. And then fast forward to a couple weeks ago, what we saw and the number of military members who were in that riot, who are being investigated and potentially in trouble, and some have gotten in trouble already for being a part of the U.S. Capitol riots, which obviously there was a lot of white nationalism, white supremacy. All of it was on the back of trying to disenfranchise millions of Black Americans. And we should not be surprised. Well, we shouldn't have been surprised by that. That's true.
Well, you know what? I don't want to say surprised is the word, but I'm actually just, I will say a little surprised because, you know, my first question is the timing is just kind of like, okay, why are we just now putting this out? But I was reading also that it's every 4 years. So another poll, if you will, is going to be done this year. So I'm curious to see what the results are going to be this year. But then also I'm curious if Trump was reelected, would we have even gotten these results? Like, that's what I'm really curious to know is if he was reelected, would we have gotten this? And I also just hate that these Black people felt like they, out of fear of retaliation, that they couldn't speak up and something was going wrong. Like, that just feels so awful to have to live like that.
The report I'm really waiting to see is the one that discusses the rampant sexual harassment and abuse and rapes that go unreported, or if they are reported, shoved under the rug, throughout the military. Because as much as racism is, rampant in the military, so is sexual assault. It's disgusting. I mean, like, there's last year alone, there was 2, women in the military who were murdered, by their fellow officers. So that's the report I'm really looking forward to.
And you think about it, saying like close to a third of active duty people say they witnessed racism firsthand. And then when you think about this, my uncle, who was in the military, he asked me, what are you going to do when you get out of school? And this was one thing I did not want to do, no disrespect, but I already had a vision, right? He was like, I'm glad, because after being in there, there's no way we can climb to the top. There's no room for us to be higher in ranks. If you want to be in the front of anything in the military, it was the front line when it was fighting in war. That's how he broke it down to me, and that's sad to see. But when you see about this and how it was hitting, I'm glad it came to life, but it's something we just don't like talking about.
Yeah, and it only came to light because we got a new president.
Right.
A new president who didn't want to sit on it.
A lot of things may come to life now.
Exactly. And to Melissa's point, General Lloyd Austin has actually just requested reports from different military leaders based on sexual assault and harassment. So we are at least soon going to get some numbers from that. I think it's just frustrating that so many people are surprised by what we saw a couple weeks ago, and maybe if we had this 4 years ago, we wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
I just want to know what the possible solutions are going to be, because really honestly what the issues are is it's a leadership issue. So I'm trying to see what the possible solutions are going to be, because this report is probably going to mirror the new one that comes out, you know, based on 2020 or 2021 whatever results. Is going to mirror what the last one was. So I'm looking to see what their solutions are, and not just rhetoric just discussed and bandied about. But anyways, moving along. At least 21 state and local Republican officials attended the January 6th rally in Washington, D.C. that turned into a violent riot, according to a new Huffington Post tally, many of whom are now under pressure to resign. They traveled from 16 different states, arriving for the Stop the Steal demonstration on the White House ellipse, where they watched President Donald Trump tell incendiary lies about having been robbed of re-election. He then told the crowd of thousands to march on the Capitol. In the crowd that day were 13 members of state houses or assemblies, 3 state senators, a county commissioner, a city council member, a GOP congressional district chair, a district director, and a co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party. The group also includes a QAnon conspiracy theorist, a self-described member of a fascist militia, and a man who once declared that the only good Democrat is a dead Democrat. The only 2 of those GOP officials appear to have breached the Capitol property itself that day have since been arrested, but the prevalence of Republican legislatures and party functionaries at the demonstration underscores the party's rank complicity in fomenting a historic insurrection. I just wanted to quote somebody who was reported of being there. His name is Vincent Sammons, the county chairman of the Republican Central Committee of Cecil County, Maryland. So we said that he'd been there. He said that he did not intend to fuel a riot. It wasn't something that was supposed to be acidic, which is a very interesting choice of word, in my opinion. It was something that was supposed to be a rally to motivate people to get their voices heard, trying to express your freedom of speech. And the backtracking is it's almost insulting at this point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you knew what you were there to do, and you knew the people that you had riled up. And what's really interesting about all of this is the fact that this is a culmination. This rally brought together so many groups that normally wouldn't participate, or kind of feed into each other's ideologies. But the fact of the matter is that you've got, fascists, you've got the Proud Boys, you've got white supremacists, and then you've just got, run-of-the-mill Trump supporters. And they all have combined to form one ideology. And that's what makes this whole situation rare, and what makes it really, really, really dangerous for the concept of democracy. I think that we're going to have a very significant problem in this country reining this situation in for years to come.
Well, like I said, to me, the word is fear, because Trump was preaching that in so many different ways. He was speaking that because he wants to make it feel like they're losing their country. That's not even theirs to begin with, if you want to get technical. But we're talking about 21 GOPs that were there. Now, were they there because they really believe in this movement? Were they there to support Trump so they can continue to be part of Trump's base? Those are the questions to be answered. And, how do y'all feel about that? Do you think they were really there because they believe they bought into it, or they feel like they had to be a part of it?
Well, I was reading all of the like Melissa read one, but I was reading like literally there's a website that posted every single lawmaker that was there and their statement, and every single person's statement blamed Antifa, and then also they all backtracked like, oh, we thought it was just going to be this. We weren't sure, just like Melissa read one. I just wanted to read one. Doug Mastriano, he spent thousands of dollars on a campaign bus, like some of the buses that we were talking about. He had buses, chartered buses, right? So he gets there, the rally happens. So then he puts out a statement that's like, oh, when we found out that it was no longer a peaceful protest, me and my wife, we left the area. But it's just kind of like, you knew what was going on. We can read these all day, but like everyone wanted to blame someone else for it, but you knew what you were going there to do. Like you already knew.
We've seen so many statements change once people got arrested.
Absolutely.
Yes. Right. And to Romeo's point, I don't know. I have no idea why what the true meaning for them being there. I think that they felt like, a lot of them felt like they were doing something wrong, but doing something wrong for a reason that they cared about.
I thought you were going to say doing something wrong for maybe the right reasons?
No, for something that they cared about, to get something that they wanted. But I also just wanted to say before we move on, I sat on a call with a hit Media Strategies this morning, and they actually surveyed a bunch of black voters and asked them what they wanted Congress to focus on. And out of the questions, progressive policies or impeachment, split down the middle, just about. Just about split down the middle.
That's interesting.
It is interesting because when it comes to impeachment, as Melissa was saying, what happens there can determine how often we see this happening in the future, these type of riots.
I want both. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I want both.
We all do.
Gotta get control over both. You're right about that. All right, a police officer in Washington State has been temporarily placed on leave after his patrol vehicle plowed through a crowd of pedestrians late Saturday, the Tacoma News Tribune reported. In footage provided to the newspaper by an eyewitness, the patrol vehicle can be seen approaching a group of pedestrians, as you see right there, that had reportedly gathered at a downtown Tacoma intersection to watch a street race. As the vehicles moves closer into the intersection, more people can be seen walking toward the front of it. The vehicle can then be seen backing away before accelerating forward into the crowd, apparently running over some, very disturbing, running over some people over there. The department said it has turned the investigation into the incident over to the county officials. Now, in a statement to the paper, Interim Police Chief Mike Akey said he was concerned that the department's experiencing another use of deadly force incident. I send my thoughts to anyone who was injured in tonight's event, and I am committed to our department's full cooperation in the independent investigation and to assess the actions of the department's response during the incident, he added. Once again, watching that video over and over again, it is so disturbing. And again, we have to talk about the training of this officer. We think about the process you go to. Is that the first thing you want to do? If there's a crowd of people at an intersection and your only vehicle is pretty much on the scene from what we're seeing there, do you want to drive into the middle of it, knowing what the outcome could be? You don't want to do that. Second, do you want to wait for backup? Maybe use your speaker on your phone, telling people to back away because you know things are very tense right now between people and the police. Let's just keep it honest.
Romeo, so I was very split when I saw this video, right? Because here's my thing. Now, I was reading a little bit more. The cop, I won't say in his defense because it was wrong, okay? It was wrong.
Definitely.
But in his defense, I will say, he said that he used his bullhorn. He said, yes, he could have waited for backup. When I watch this video over and over again, I'm a person, like I tell you guys, like I'm terrified of I'm terrified of doing the right thing and getting pulled over by the police. You have people, 15 people, you don't know where that cop car was headed to. You don't know if that was headed to go save one of your friends that could have been in trouble.
True.
You're in front of an emergency vehicle. It's kind of like if the cop would have used a gun, then everybody would have been like, oh my God, he shot these people. But it's just like, why are 15, 20 people on top of a cop car stopping him at the same time? Like, I feel like we can't just sit, and I am not trying to say that this was right for this cop to do that, but I'm also just kind of like, where's the responsibility also? Like, what was the point of 15, 20 of you guys on top of a cop car for what? What was the reason? Yeah. Like, seriously.
Yeah, I am not split on this at all. Police cannot use deadly force for anything but feeling like their lives are in danger. In this instance, this seemed incredibly annoying, especially if you had somewhere else to go. People were not following the rules, but you cannot attempt to kill human beings. And unfortunately, fortunately,
no one
police
died.
Officers, yes, fortunately no one died. Yeah. Also, in our country, police officers are supposed to have different rules than civilians. You cannot get annoyed and use state violence against your citizens.
You're right. Yes.
Agreed.
This is not okay. No matter what, unless somebody is trying to kill you, to harm you, you cannot use deadly force. That's against the rules. That's not how it's supposed to be. Separate from that, people should be following the rules, but I'm so tired of this being the system.
Remember a few months ago we saw that a black man was running through a field because he feared for his life, who was once a police officer, and they ran him over with the truck? I mean, like,
that is like makes me shaky to see.
That's different. You know what? Okay, we'll move along.
No, what?
Well, because I feel like that was different. I feel like that's a great point to bring up about the black guy that got ran over. My thing is, he wasn't banging on the window of a cop car with 5 other people inciting. This is the same thing. And I am a proud black person, so I don't want anybody to feel like I am against cops. Anything like I'm for the cops. Anything like that. I'm not trying to make a statement like that. But what I am saying is that also we have to take responsibility. It was pointless to do do that. Not that he was right, but it's also just like, why are we trying to trigger a police officer? What is the point in that? That's my thing. Like,
there's
yes,
other options.
There are other. It was just, you could have just not done it. Like, I was reading the story. They were trying to block the cop from stopping some other illegal stuff that was going on. It was just totally pointless to do. Like, you have people that are doing the right thing that get pulled over by a cop and things happen. This was a situation. It was totally uncalled for and unneeded. So sorry, I was just really, I was upset to see it too, because it was pointless. But anyway. So, moving right along, because I just got fired up about that. Okay, let me calm down, all right? So, an NPR investigation published on Monday found that at least 135 unarmed black men in the United States have been killed by police since 2015. So, the investigation shows that the majority of the officers involved in the shooting deaths of the unarmed black men, 75% to be exact, they were white. Now, many of the officers were convicted of crimes, but still were able to keep their jobs, according to the report. 19 of the officers involved in the shooting of unarmed black men were rookies, and in total, the killings have resulted in at least 30 judgments and $142 million in settlements, with dozens of claims still pending. Now, I actually read this, and the person who wrote it, her name is Cheryl Thompson. She's an AK. Hey, Sora. First thing out of this that I wanted to add was that 15 of the officers were involved in a fatal shooting of a black man or woman. And that, I feel like, is a very big issue. But also, what was the biggest problem for me is all of the people that died in these were small things, like on a bike with no light, failing to dim lights, blocking traffic. And that goes back to what I'm saying about being fearful of, like, doing the right thing, minding my business, just driving and have a headlight out, and then you die for that. And that is very scary for me.
When I think about some of the reports that come through over the years from Mike Brown in St. Louis, when I think about Eric Gardner, George Floyd, I think about all these people, it makes me think about something has to be different. Something has to change.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. This report alone, sorry to cut you, Roman,
no,
but
no, go ahead.
This
go
report alone should be the basis for, at the very least, reviewing qualified immunity, if not getting rid of it altogether. That's my personal opinion. I am so sick and tired of, like, what they said in there. They were convicted of crimes but kept their jobs. Yeah. I'm sorry, these people are not on the job to serve and protect. The insurrection showed us just how many people, law enforcement officials, took part in that. This is enough to reform the whole idea of qualified immunity. And if you're a cop that abuses your power, you lose your job and you face criminal consequences.
I also want to talk about how I think we have to start measuring things differently than using unarmed. Because I think that in some instances, people are armed, but that doesn't have anything to do with whether or not they should have been killed. Philando Castile, as we know and we remember, was armed, but that had nothing to do with what happened to him. And so his name wouldn't make it on a report like that. And it also makes it seem like, if you have a knife on you, if you're carrying something legally, that, you don't get buckled into this. When we hear unarmed, we immediately think, okay, they didn't deserve it. Sometimes people are armed and also didn't deserve to die.
Yep.
Very true.
So I want to see, I think that this doesn't even show as bad of a problem as it is.
Yes,
agreed.
agreed.
And you think about that $142 million. First of all, you can't bring anyone's life back. And this money could be used for bridging the gap between the community that these police supposed to serve and protect.
You're right.
Agreed.
All right, speaking of serving and protecting, how about this? California Attorney General Javier Becerra has announced a state civil rights investigation of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department after allegations of excessive force. I'm going to break down the Attorney General's office statement, but essentially the state will investigate a possible pattern of unconstitutional policing. Here's part of the statement, word for word. The California Department of Justice investigation comes on the heels of allegations of excessive force, retaliation, and other misconduct, as well as a number of recent reported incidents involving LASD management and personnel. This may be one of Becerra's last acts as AG, because you'll remember he is President Joe Biden's nominee for Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. He tweeted, "There are serious concerns and reports that accountability and adherence to legitimate policing practices have lapsed at LASD." Sheriff Alex Villanueva released a statement as well. He says he has repeatedly asked the Attorney General's office for its oversight. He wrote, "I look forward to this non-criminal pattern and practice investigation. Our department may finally have an impartial, objective assessment of our operations." Now, remember, that is his statement. It is important to know that Villanueva and his department have been the target of protest over fatal shootings. And as NBC News reports, the department has often responded to criticism and outside probes defiantly. That is Javier Becerra right there. I want to just give you a little bit about Sheriff Villanueva. because last month he actually changed department policy to allow his deputies to cover their names when policing protests and other civil disturbances. So at one point, deputies were accused of covering their name tags with duct tape. And we've seen what happens in interactions. We've seen lots of that during protest. And activists were upset about this change because they say, you know, this makes it harder for us to hold these people accountable.
Yeah.
So that's just interesting when he says, you know, I've been asking for this. I need this. It's
Not really.
I can help them out with their investigation. Fire Sheriff Villanueva. Boom.
We
There
have
go.
to fire Sheriff Villanueva. Los Angeles County voters have to fire Sheriff Villanueva.
Exactly. And that is what I hope that a lot of people have realized from this, you know, from the presidential election and then the Georgia Senate runoff election, is that it's the low level and mid-level elections that actually matter. It's voting in your district attorneys. It's voting in the sheriffs. It's voting in judges. These are the people that are going to decide the community's future. And this is exactly, we have to vote them out.
All right, taking it to our YouTube soulmates. You guys have a lot to talk about today. Just a few ones I want to pick out here. So Be It One says they should all be fired immediately. All right, another one of our YouTube soulmates says the military is its own different beast. They have their own court system. They have their own laws. It's really its own entity. That's deep. Last one here, Marco Polo says, unfortunately, the cop is going to get off with no charges. Now, keep on talking in our YouTube chat, and I will be back with more comments.